Yay. I finally remembered to do that. All right. So before we get to the main purpose for the event tonight is hearing from our guest speaker, we do have some announcements to make at the start. And I try to keep these as brief, and I work very hard to make it even more brief with every meeting, so I'm not taking up your time and stealing time away from our speaker. But I was mentioning to the people who remain back in the main room that one of the things that comes around this time of year every year from ASQ is a call for nominations. And these are nominations for the elected positions within sections and divisions. Within a section, there are 3 elected positions: a chair, secretary, and treasurer. In our case, the Phoenix section, we already have our chair selected because he was elected last year as our chair-elect. So he automatically rolls into chair. However, the other 2 elected positions are currently open. If any one of you are interested in either self-nominating, or if you know of someone else who might be of interest and would do a good job, you can nominate them for either secretary or treasurer. There's a brief job description of each of these positions up on our My ASQ site. If you do make a nomination, just be aware that there is a nomination form that you have to fill out. And again, there's a whole news blog about this with links up on My ASQ. You would download the form. You have to get 10 signatures from what are called regular members. These are all individual members of the Phoenix section who are paid up to date. So the only people who are not a regular would be employees of organizational member companies and student members are not eligible. But if you're a professional, senior, a fellow, or an honorary, you are eligible and you're eligible to vote. Now, be aware that we do have a slate of candidates, but because this is an elected position, we also accept nominations from you, the members. But if we don't receive any nominations from the membership, then our slated candidates are David Gibson, who would just renew his role as secretary. If you recall his name, he was my predecessor. He was the chair back in 2018 and 2019. And then for this past year, he's been our secretary. That is a renewable position. So he just said, if no one else volunteers, I'll be glad to fill in. But please don't let that prevent you from nominating yourself or somebody else. David and all of us are more than happy to bring more people, new people into the fold. Treasurer is open. It's a 2-year position. It's non-renewable, so you can only do it for 2 years, and then you have to move into a different position. And again, like secretary, we do have a slated candidate. Hillary Werner is currently our newsletter editor, but the treasurer role really isn't that time-consuming any longer since we've gone to an online electronic accounting system. Everything is handled electronically. The only thing we have to do is request the checks to go out to the vendors, and that's about it. We don't have to prepare any reports or summaries. We don't have to do any audits. So pretty easy role, but it is a grooming role to be eventual chair. And again, we do have an excellent candidate, but don't let that stop you from nominating someone or yourself if you have an interest. And as it says here, this is where you would go to myasq.org page and clicking on this link, it will take you to that specific form. There are also appointed positions. Now, we still need to know who is interested. So if any of you are interested in one of these appointed positions, we would love to hear from you. We have 2 different ways of contacting us. Every section must also have an audit chair and a membership chair. Now, these 2 positions are appointed. Our membership chair is already in the fold. He's going to return. So that position really isn't open. But we do have an opening as an audit chair. And as I just got done explaining, because of Bill Highway, the online accounting system, there really isn't a whole lot to this position, but it's a required position. What we expect our audit chair to do is to be more accountable, to make sure that if people are supposed to be putting stuff into our master document system, we use SharePoint, just to do a quarterly audit, make sure that the reports that are supposed to be there are indeed there, and to get them in timely. But that's really about it for the audit chair. Arrangements, we're looking for a new on-site person. So again, once we start having face-to-face meetings, we need someone who will basically attend the meeting. They'll be there early so they can help make any final arrangements and set up with the facility. They'll get people registered at the door, hand them their RU certificates, that type of thing. We also have a placement chair position open. So this is really, as we become aware of job openings in the community, we would post them on our website. So that's what the placement chair does. And then I am currently also the admin for my ASQ. I put all the files up, I put all the posts out, I upload the Sundial newsletter, I upload the handouts from these meetings. And again, like other positions, I'm currently fulfilling that role, but if anybody else has an interest in learning how to do that, and you like working with IT stuff, feel free. I would be glad to train in a successor into that position. All right. And as you know, every month I report our progress on working towards our strategic plan. We use the red, yellow, green. Actually, I threw in blue to mean it's closed. We're done. And we're making good progress. Here it is, just the start of September, and we've got 7 of the 9 done, and the other 2 close in next month. So we will have met our strategic plan. And that's it for my announcements. And then I have a few more comments at the conclusion before you all depart. But at this point, I'd like to introduce our guest speaker for this evening, Jay Arthur. Jay is known as the Nowhere Man, as KNOW, Where Man. Jay teaches people how to eliminate delay, defects, and deviations in one day using Excel and what he calls the magnificent 7 tools of Lean Six Sigma. Jay is also known as the shortcut to results guy using Lean Six Sigma. Jay is first and foremost a money belt. He knows how to use data to fix broken processes, to save time, save money, save lives. Jay has over 30 years of experience helping companies save millions of dollars. You may have heard of Jay as he is a frequent speaker at the Lean Six Sigma conferences, and he's also the author of several popular books such as Lean Six Sigma Demystified and Lean Six Sigma for Hospitals. And he is the creator of the QI Macros SPC software. So with that introduction to tonight's presentation, Jay is going to talk to us about Agile Lean Six Sigma, or Agile Process Improvement. Because traditionally Lean Six Sigma takes too long, costs too much, and in the end, often fails to deliver the expected results. Instead of taking 160 hours of training over 4 months, like a black belt, you can, learn the core skills and start making improvements in just a day or less. You don't need to know everything about everything to do anything. You only need to know how to use a handful of tools and where to get started. So this is what Jay calls Agile Process Innovation, or hacking Lean Six Sigma results or Six Sigma for results. With that, Jay, I would like to turn it over to you.
All right.
If you'd like to share your screen, I will unshare mine.
Okay. Or I can try and block you.
Yeah, it seems to be the way it seems to work today.
There we go.
There you go.
All right. You can see my screen, I hope.
Yes, I do.
Always a good sign. All right. So I want to thank all of you for sharing a little bit of your evening with me. I've been at this since 1990. when I started, I was one of the newbies in quality. Now I'm the old gray-haired, member of quality. So, it's I don't know how that happened, but 30 years later, still doing it. But my goal has always been, how do I help people learn the tools of quality and use them to start getting results? And because I'll tell you what, leadership only wants results. Lean and Six Sigma is nice, but results are better. And just for those of you in the Phoenix area, I grew up in Tucson, Arizona, near the corner of 5th and Swan, and I went to the University of Arizona, graduated in 1973, went to work for Mountain Bell Telephone, which later became US West, which later became Quest, which later became something else. So, but I left before it got too crazy. So that's just a little background about me. In the phone company, I spent most of my time in IT building software in mainframes, mini computers, microcomputers, and so on. And so when they shut down the quality department in 1995, because in general, most people weren't getting results, the VP of finance called me up because I'd helped her save $20 million in postage and $16 million in adjustments. She said, "Do you want to come to work for me?" And I said, "Well, I don't think so. I think I want to go out on my own." So I went out on my own, and I had to build some tools to help do the charts and graphs from Lean and Six Sigma. And so 1995, that was Windows 95. And there was, at that same time, that was like Macintosh 1984. And so they finally had a Windows system and Excel 05. And so I started building some tools in Excel and started using those when I was consulting with clients. And eventually people said, "That's kind of cool. Where can I get one of those?" And I thought, well, I better make that into a product. So over the last, 25 odd years, I've been developing QI macros, and I'll share with you a little bit about how that all works. I believe that you can't do Six Sigma without some tools. And I see a lot of people trying to do it and they just fail. So let me jump in, and I'd invite you, if you have questions along the way, just put them into the chat, and then I'll ask the moderator to come in and kind of ask me questions, bump in at any point, because this is for you, right? I know what this stuff is, and so hopefully we can talk about this. So anyway, a lot of companies are stumbling onto what I call an agile approach to implementing Lean and Six Sigma. And they start succeeding where traditional implementations have failed. I think most Lean Six Sigma things rise and fall in about a 3-year window. And I've seen way too much of that. And so what I want to do is, how do we accelerate the implementation of Lean and Six Sigma and get results? Because one of the things I'd like to see a hassle-free America, where I order something at a fast food place and I get the taco that I ordered. It's not missing from my bag, right? Or that I do a transaction with my bank. I was talking in the breakout room about they made an appointment with me to go down and talk to a banker yesterday morning at like 9:15. I showed up at exactly 9:15, but he'd foolishly taken a walk-in. And so I sat there for about 5 minutes and finally had to go talk to somebody else to see if they could help me. And it took me till probably 2:15 in the afternoon to actually get the transaction I wanted, which might not have taken more than 20 minutes to get done, right? So it was like, oh my gosh, what is this all about? I don't know if I'm just a lightning rod for bad service, but I'm pretty good at it. So anyway, hassle-free America, hassle-free healthcare. I'm especially interested in healthcare. And the other thing about this agile approach is it really helps identify those best candidates for green and black belt training. And I think there's 7 key tools that if you just use those ruthlessly, I think you can go a long way. And then learn how to teach Lean and Six Sigma in one day and generate results. So this is a quote from back in 2017 in the Harvard Business Review. Six Sigma is too complex and time consuming to fit into a regular workday. We need tools that don't require an entire organization to undergo weeks-long training programs. Guess what? That's Harvard Business Review, and leaderships read all this stuff. And so I think there's a lot of shared belief about that. Now, I don't care if you call it operational excellence or process improvement or whatever you call it, it still takes too long, costs too much, and irritates leadership teams. So back when I looked at 20th century quality improvement, so ASQ was formed in 1946. And at that time, farm employment had fallen. Service and manufacturing were about even Steven, if you will. And so that's where we started. And we really kind of, because of the war, we're focused on manufacturing, right? Deming, Duran, Western Electric, the whole Shoehart thing. The reason we had such good telephone service was probably because Shoehart was riding herd on Western Electric. So out of that, though, came, the big binder, many days of training to give you a green belt and a black belt, and then projects. This was the craziest thing. I was at a conference and I saw a couple of consultants who'd done research into how long Six Sigma projects took. And they said, well, most Six Sigma projects take 4 to 16 months. And my brain said, oh no, that's just too long, right? Leadership is not going to wait that long. Your customers are going to change. Your market's going to change. Everything's going to change. By the time you get it fixed, guess what? It's going to have moved on. So that's our tradition. And I'm afraid that, leadership just doesn't want to hear that anymore. So here's what I believe. I believe there's what I call the long tail of Lean and Six Sigma tools. So there's a handful of tools, the 4%, that will solve 80, 90% of the problems. Let's teach you those things first. Then you can learn all the other stuff that's out there as you need it. I almost guarantee you, if you learn something in black belt training, but you don't use it for a year, you've lost it, right? It's unfortunate, but it's going to be hard to, dig up your design of experiments knowledge. You're going to have to go revisit it to figure it out. So how do we go about this and start? This is kind of my observation, just as I work with more and more companies and more things. So here's what's happened since the 1950s, right? Service industries have exploded. They're 80% of employment, and manufacturing has fallen, right? All of manufacturing is probably really manufacturing is about 7-8%. A lot of it moved overseas and did other things. So the jobs are not here anymore. They're there. But service industries are desperate, I think, for this kind of stuff. So I work a lot in healthcare. They need it because, they waste $1 trillion and kill 500,000 people a year. They're just starting, COVID finally caught up to them. So these are the kinds of things that are worrying me, right? Because I'm going to turn 70 this year, and I'd like healthcare to be a lot more safe than it is at the moment. So these are the things that I see out there in the world, but the service industries aren't embracing the tools of quality, and I'll show you why. There's some examples I have for you. So I believe that there are simple problems at the very bottom that you can just fix. And I can't tell you how many people I talk to are trying to use their Six Sigma training on a simple problem that they know how to fix so that they can prove to themselves that the methodology works. This sounds strange, right? Just go fix them, okay? And then at the other end, we have more complicated tools like full-blown DMAG, DOE, QFD, all the other stuff. There are complicated problems. But most problems aren't. They're uncomplicated, but they need some data and some tools. And then we need to focus, improve, sustain that new level and honor our progress and repeat endlessly and forever. So I think most of the problems out there don't need all of the training that we supply. And unfortunately, I've noticed lately, I've been talking to some people, and it turns out that sometimes people who've been trained up at the level of black belt try to take a tool and go look for a problem to solve with it, as opposed to looking at what problems do I have, what tools do I need, and then let's go fix those things. And so I think we can sometimes get enamored with the technology and forget, hey, I'm supposed to be solving problems here. What do management want? They want results. All right, so here's a guy that he wrote a book on hacking marketing. He said the spirit of hacking can be adapted and applied to general business management, not just technical innovation. Now, I'm an old Six Sigma guy, an old software guy, and guess what? I'm used to hacking things to get things done, right? I'm I wrote a book that was kind of pre-Agile in 1989, which was 11 years before they got around to spinning up Agile. I called it Rapid Evolutionary Development. But that's the same principle, which is how do we get stuff released in a timely fashion? And I sometimes drive my staff a little bit mad because we get ideas and then I implement them and then they're ready to be included into our next release. So I started doing this probably in 2000, 2001-ish. But recently I've been to ASQ conferences and other conferences, and other people are rediscovering the hacks that I've come up with. So I was at the ASQ Lean Six Sigma conference in Phoenix a couple of years ago, in BC before COVID, and I saw Christus Health, and they're a health group down in Texas, I believe. But anyway, they had gone, Big Sigma and implemented the green belts and black belt training and everything else. And the leadership was getting a little annoyed because they didn't see any bottom line results. And so the leadership team came to the training and team and head of the quality group and said, do you think you could train people in one day and get some results? And those people were like, I don't know, right? And so they were freaking out, but they said, let's try. And so they did. So what they did was they said, okay, we need to bring in people who have a real problem to solve. And we can only bring in people that are working on that particular problem. We're going to bring them in. We're going to spend a half a day teaching them stuff and a half a day actually solving their problem. And then they're going to go out and implement results. And they did this with, I think, about 4 or 5 teams the first time around. And within a matter of weeks, they started getting results because they had a team that really needed to work, brought them in, did some training, worked on their solving their problem in the room, which gave them real applied knowledge of what we're talking about. I don't know about you, but when I learned from Florida Power and Light, they had a whole thing on Mamma Mia's Pizzeria. That was our case study. Well, guess what? People don't understand case studies that have to do with nothing around their own business. Too many people teach manufacturing examples to healthcare. All right. So, and the healthcare people don't understand whatever they're talking about, production lines and other stuff. They don't get it. So it doesn't stick. So let's work on their problem. And then they started getting results. Now, at that same conference, there was a presentation by Novartis, that's a drug manufacturer. They were having trouble getting samples out to their sales reps to take to doctors so that they could make money. And so they brought a couple groups in for 2 days. They went 2 days, did a little lean training, a little Six Sigma training, and worked on their problem and deployed it so that they could collapse the cycle time to get samples to doctors and sales reps. 2 days. At the same time, a little later in another conference that year, I saw Crayola. Crayola had done the same thing, a 2-day training, 1 day of tools, 1 day of application. But they were only taking people who had real problems to solve. You couldn't get in. If you just wanted a black belt or green belt or yellow belt or white, but you couldn't get in, right? So what did they do? They said, we're just going to take groups that really have something to solve, and we're going to get them in a room. We're going to teach them for a day. Then we're going to apply it for a day. And then we're going to get the results. They started getting results. And at that same conference, I saw a presentation by Underwriters Laboratory. And Underwriters Laboratory has 14,000 people or something across the globe. And so bringing people into a room wasn't going to work. So they had a blended training like we're doing here, which is they had some online training in Lean and Six Sigma and key tools, one, I think a day. And then they had meetings of the teams to actually work on real problems in different locations. And they started getting results too. This is the Agile hack that I've been using for almost 2 decades by then. So this is what I want you to think about. This is what people are doing. Now, I'm not saying you're not going to need green belts and black belts. Funny thing happened on the way to results. Chris's Health discovered that if we had 20 people in the room, 1 or 2 of them really showed a talent for doing this. and were really interested in going on. And guess what? Those people went on to get green belt training. And then they were much more effective green belts than if you just pull somebody out of a crowd. And then some of them went on to become black belts. So I'm not saying you don't need those green belts and black belts, but what you need is results to build some momentum to find the right people that can do the job. So this is what it looks like. So there's pre-work. What we want to do is select the teams that have a real problem to solve and data about the problem. If you just want to get trained, sorry, too bad. Right? You got to have a problem. And when I work with people, I say, well, you have to send me your data before we get together or it'll be a wasted day. And they all look at me like I'm crazy, but I said, no data, no training. And they get a little cranky about that, but they send me data and we figure out ways to do this. Then they had a one-day training where they train them in key improvement tools. Some of them use QI macros, some of them used other software, but they had software on hand to help them apply it to their data and figure out the problem. And then after that, they went out and implemented their countermeasures and got results. And so there was dramatic improvement in ROI in terms of getting things going. And they found the people who were really maximally prepared to become a green belt or a black belt. So that's kind of the nuts and bolts of hacking lean for results. How do we get there from here? And I would say you don't have to teach people everything. You only have to keep teaching the key tools. And unfortunately, I think we spend a lot of time teaching people tools they don't need to know to solve problems they don't have to impress people they don't like. And so this is my concern, right? And if we spend too much time, the other thing I've noticed, one of the key things in lean is from downtime is overproduction. Think about training. If I take and stuff all that stuff into your brain, right? All of a sudden you have too many things in your brain. And when you have overproduction and a brain cramp, guess what? You're going to get confused. And because I sit at this weird intersection of the world with QI macros, I talk to a lot of people. And people will call up and they'll tell me that, I got certified in this and I got that and this other thing. And then they'll ask me a question that tells me they somehow didn't get the clue about what they were supposed to do. And so what happens, is they get overwhelmed and I say, well, what problem are you trying to solve? And they go, well, I don't know. So I help them pinpoint what problem they have. And I say, well, what kind of tools do you think you might need to use to solve that problem? And they'll tell me, I said, go do that. So this is a funny sort of experience that I've had being the software guy. So anyway, hacking lean, and we were talking about this in the breakout session a little bit. But in essence, you have to shrink the arrows, right? So if you draw a value stream map, right? Where am I going to go? There we go. All right. So we got a value stream map and we got arrows. If you build a value stream map with this is what people are doing, this is the delay between each successive step, right? Most of the delay, most of the cycle time in a service industry is in the arrows. 95% of the cycle time is in the arrows. So we don't want to worry about people. I can't tell you how relieved people are when I tell them this. You don't have to be 1 nanosecond faster. You just have to get rid of the delays. And so that's the magic of hacking lean. Do we need to know tack time? No, because tack time is all about the activity, right? What do we need to know? The delay caused in that arrow. And too many people don't notice the arrows because they look are small. So here's a bunch of nurses value stream mapping something going on in their nursing unit or whatever. And this is a practice room where they have imaginary patients to work with. And so value stream mapping or spaghetti diagramming, focusing on those arrows does a lot of good stuff. And here you can see we had a nursing unit spaghetti diagram of how the nurses moved around within the nursing unit. And that took about an hour and they talked about it. And then we redid it. How would you revise how that all works? And then I had them go back and implement it. And I've almost never seen a nursing unit not collapse nurse travel time by 50% or more. because nurses get used, we build these things where we get used to the delays that are built into our system and we just deal with them. No, right? Let's figure out how to collapse that delay. And I've done this with E470, which is a local toll road, in terms of how they position people for automobile support along the way and other things. And they ended up saving $2.3 million in the first year that they implemented some of these things. So this is the kind of thing that I think is very valuable and can be done quickly, right? People ask me, what should I use? And well, are you trying to get faster? Value streams and spaghetti diagramming and post-it notes and a flip chart. Oh my gosh, stuck to a wall. This is not complex. This took 2 hours and saved 50% of their travel time. Here's another example of a nursing unit spaghetti diagram. And you can see nurses are traveling way too much. Well, when nurses are traveling too much, guess what? They end up, having some struggles, and they don't take care of patients as well as they do, and the patients have bad outcomes, and the patients are unhappy. And there's one hospital up in Seattle, Virginia Mason, who took nursing travel time and reduced it from 90% down to 30% of their time traveling. So they spent all of that extra time with patients. Nursing satisfaction soared, patient satisfaction soared. These things are all doable. So that's a little high-speed tour through value stream mapping. But I want you to get this idea that I don't worry about changeover time or, tack time, or I don't talk to them about any of that stuff because I only want them to collapse the delays between steps. I worked back in 2003. I worked with the Veterans Administration, Sioux Falls, South Dakota, best place in the nation, fastest place in the nation. And so a veteran would say, I had this problem because I fell out of a Huey or a landing craft or whatever in Nam or World War II or whatever it was. And then it was 140 days before they would get them in for treatment, for diagnosis and treatment. Well, it turned out that 120 days of that, 100 plus days of that, we're looking up the records that are stored in St. Louis about, did Joe actually fall out of a Huey and Nam, which may not have, been documented, but, and then there were like 3 big buildings and one of them burnt to the ground in 77. So there's probably no records for those anyway. So we got rid of that delay and I got them down to 25 days, right? And if you remember, there was a big thing in Phoenix about it taking 56 days. I'm telling you, it was way worse than that before. So if I've done nothing else in the world, I help them figure out how to collapse cycle time to get veterans the care they need. And I was trying to get them down to 24 hours, but I didn't win that one. Anyway, that's just, these are the kinds of things that you encounter when you're out in the world doing this kind of stuff. All right, so that's a little bit about how we hack lean, right? Let's shrink those arrows, nothing to it. And again, you can do that very quickly. That's one of the things I love about that is you can do it very quickly. So now let's talk about how do we hack Six Sigma. Well, I believe that all of the multi-million-dollar projects I ever worked on started with a pivot table of raw data about defects, mistakes, errors, waste, whatever. And then we turned that into a control chart. And then we turned that into a series of Pareto charts. And then once we get drilled down enough, we take the big bar of that, throw it into the fishbone diagram. And if you narrow enough in your focus, you do not get a fishbone diagram. You get a minnow bone diagram. There aren't that many bones on it. You don't get a salmon bone diagram. You don't get a whale bone diagram. I remember when I was in the phone company first learning this, and somebody was doing a fishbone diagram, but it covered an entire conference room wall. That's how you know you didn't get narrow enough in your focus, right? It was a clue, right? So if we get good enough at analyzing data and get narrow enough, we can fix the thing that's really broken, and then come up with countermeasures, and then track whether we improved or not. And then the next thing is you have to put in a control system to monitor this. So your Pareto chart should get smaller afterwards. Your histogram should move over and get, more centered and tighter. So I know you all know this. But these are the things we want to be able to show graphically so that everybody understands, so that these charts become a visual language of the improvement story. And when I see a story that's written like this, I can read it like a book, and I don't need lots of text or anything else. All right, so these are what I call, between this and the value stream maps, the magnificent 7 tools of Lean Six Sigma. So let me take you down the lane. So I go to ASQ World. I go to the Institute for Healthcare Improvement, and I go through, and they all have all these improvement posters. And so what I do is I go around, stroke tally what kind of charts and things are used in each one of these things. And so if you've got a bar chart, I can do a stroke tally. If it's a line chart, whatever. So 1917, bar and line charts were 50% of the total. Let me explain to you, line and bar charts are the dumb and dumber of charts. So if you're using them, you can never get the kind of results you're hoping for. And in healthcare, they're shooting for 0 harm, which would be really nice. There were some control charts in Fishbones, a Pareto chart, flow chart, run chart, pie chart, box and whisker, a few other things, but mainly bar charts and line charts. Now, the same is true at Magnet, which is another big healthcare conference. Bar and line charts, 84% of the total. Little bitty Pareto charts, control charts, and Fishbones. These people we talk about improving quality, and we're not doing it. This is the National Association of Healthcare Quality, line and bar charts, 75% of the total. A couple of control charts, a Pareto chart. All right, if we're in charge of healthcare quality, I don't know if I have the ASQ one, but I did this at ASQ World, I think in 2019. I should grab that chart and put it in here. But it was the same problem, line and bar charts, because they're easy to draw in Microsoft Excel. Well, guess what? But they're not going to help you sustain the improvement. One of the biggest problems I often see is that people go through all their improvements and they call me up and they say, well, he had this great improvement, but 6 months later it was gone. And I say, well, did you put in a control system with some control charts to monitor that so you can detect when it starts to fail and you can do something? No, we didn't do that. So a lot of people are doing the first few steps of DMAIC, but they're not doing the C part, the DMAIC, the full DMAIC, and putting in a system to monitor this. So I want to, I look at all these posters and I want to share with you what's wrong with line charts. So here's a type of urinary tract infection, and somebody put a trend line on this line chart, and there's a little R squared down here, which I added. They didn't have any, which is only 0.3. Well, if only 30% of your points fit that line, would you really own that chart? No. But here's one where they've done a chart with a C chart. Well, there was one out of control point and essentially a stable process thereafter. And I can't tell you how many times I go around and I see these people with their cell phones taking pictures of these improvement posters with these silly line charts with trend lines on them, and that like they're going to run back and implement it in their hospital. Like that's the best thing since sliced bread. Guess what? No, right? It's not going to do anything. You're going to waste a lot of time. Well, here's another one. This is another type of hospital-acquired infection. And this one, the R squared was 53%, which is better. But it would have been better if we'd have drawn it as a control chart, right? So we see the before and then we see the after. So we can show that process improvement afterward. And I talked to the Baldrige people. They were across from me at exhibit hall, and they were saying, there's all these people who try to get the Baldrige Award, and they show us the before, the left side of this chart, but they don't show us the after, the right side of the chart. Did they actually make that improvement? And so the lady was very impressed with what I was trying to say. But I think this is something we have to do. That's the after part. So anyway, it's not, are these good? I don't know. But if you have control charts and histograms, you're going to know things are stable and capable. This, I think, is one of the shortcomings of what we've been doing. And I'm not saying you're doing it, but I'm saying I see a lot of it, which tells me, guess what? We're just not doing the work that we need to do. Things don't get better. So here's my observation. Most data is overcooked. It's over summarized. It's, somewhat useless in this format because you can't figure out what to improve. And so here's some raw data. This is more healthcare stuff, but types of surgeries by quarter. This stuff has little or no nutritional value. How are we going to figure out why these 4 people died? Well, you can't unless you go back and try and find them. So I'm going to encourage all of you to go on a raw data diet. Raw data diet. Now, what does that mean? Well, when you're talking about this, you want to know the when, the where, and the what happened for each event that went wrong. All right. And if you have it, I'd like to know how much, right? And who and why and so on, right? So if you have data that looks like this is by region, by hospital, by admit date, denied charges. If you have data that looks like that, and here's each one of these denied charges, right? Here's our where, here's our when, here's what happened, how much it cost. That could be worth $5 million a year. Here's one thing we did with scrap, right? So you have by machine, this is what a machine was, scrap code, what type of description, what type of scrap weight. So again, we can see the where, the when, another where or what, and how much. That was worth $1 million a year. This kind of data, a lot of consultants talk about low-hanging fruit. The visible low-hanging fruit has been picked. I have an apple tree out in my front yard that's just loaded with apples this year for some reason. And there's, road work guys on our block, and they've been picking an apple a day and having it for lunch. So that's the low-hanging fruit. But I call this the invisible low-hanging fruit because people do not know how to analyze this data. Or at least most of them don't. All right, so if you have raw data, we're going to take pivot tables. We're going to summarize that. We're going to turn that into control charts and Pareto charts for action. And then we're going to do some root cause analysis and make all this stuff work. So let me give you one example. This is the hospital denied insurance claim. And the funny thing about when I go into a hospital and work with people, they go, well, are you a doctor or a nurse? And I go, no. And they look at me askance, and I said, and that's good, because I don't believe all the nonsense you believe about medicine. I don't have all your limiting beliefs. I don't have your hallucinations about how everything should work. So I can just look at your data and help you think, right? That's my job. But when I came in, they're saying, oh, we're losing so much money every, I think, it's like $12 million a year. So it's $1 million a month, a little over $1 million, $12 million a year. And they'd tried everything they could think of to fix this. How could this little whippersnapper with his computer come in here and figure out what's wrong with our denials, right? And so, but anyway, so I ended up using that raw data to come up with what are my denied charges every month. And then I use, we all know Pareto's rule, but I have gone beyond that. I call it, I hope I coined this term, the 450 rule, that within that 20%, that same power law still applies. So as little as 4% of what you do produces over almost 2/3 of the mistakes, errors, waste, rework, lost profit, patient harm, whatever it is, right? So all we have to do is go find that 4%. And what's 4%? It's 4 steps out of 100, right? Remember, in in lean, we're working on delays. Well, now we're working on the actual activities, the steps in our process. And so, excuse me. So that 4%, one step out of every 25 is producing half the mistakes, errors, waste, rework, and lost profit. Let's find and fix that. If we find and fix that, we're going to get massive improvements. And this is where a lot of people fail when they start, I think, in Six Sigma. They don't tackle a big enough, dangerous, ugly enough project, because I think that's where the fun is. So that one step is our $1 million misstep. So here's what happened. I went drilling down into their data, and it turns out that about $8 million, 61%, was caused by timely filing. But I didn't stop there. I wanted to look at timely filing. What's going on within timely filing? So this is the 80-20 level, and we want to drill down into the next level. When I got down to the next level, it turned out that one insurance company was 64% of the denials, which is almost a perfect 450 rule. It's perfect. And it turned out that they were able to go, what? And they very quickly came up with their minnow bone diagram, and they figured out they had to go work with this one payer. There were some other things that were causing some denials, and so they worked with that insurance company to remove excessive denials, reduce delays. And so the other thing they had was this was a pretty important thing. But you can see here in the after, we actually reduced this by almost $400,000 a month, $5 million a year, right? And so here's our reduction. You can see we reduced our variation and moved the center line. This is the good thing. This is what it should look like. And so these are the kinds of things you can do with raw data that you can't do just on data that's too summarized. It's overcooked. All right. So before I jump into that one, so let me just show you. Where am I? There we go. So you may or may not know about QI macros. That's okay. You may use other products. That's okay. But I want you to get the idea of what I'm talking about here. So, for example, I'm going to open some QI macros sample data here. And we have some data mining data. So you can see here by date, by packaging line, we have a type of packaging defects. And I can't tell you how many people look at this and go and start counting how many times folded flaps appears on this page. Sorry. Don't go getting crazy on me. That's what happens when you play with the wrong button. So anyway, so folded flaps, right? And then we have more folded flaps and more folded flaps and more folded flaps. And people start to blank out. Like, what do I do with this? And so, go away. What I did was back in 2016 and 17, I built an improvement project wizard, which will take this data and turn it into an entire improvement project. So all I have to do is select these two headings. And I only have, 2-3 columns just to give you some idea about how this works. But what I did was I developed this habit of, pivot tables, control charts, Pareto charts, fishbones. I said, well, I wonder if I can automate that. Right. So one of my goals in the world is how do we automate things that were difficult to teach? So I have a control chart wizard that automates that decision tree that we've used to pick the right control chart. This thing has it built in, right? I have a stat wizard that automates the decision tree for statistics, right? How do I help people get to results in a very timely fashion? So all you have to do is pick two headings, click on the improvement project wizard, and the improvement project wizard will go out there and pivot the data and start drawing all of the charts and Pareto charts and fishbones and so on and so forth. And then it'll come up with sort of an executive summary. So it created a control chart of defects or by line. And then it came up with a couple of projects, had a high level 80-20 rule Pareto, drilled down into the big bar of that, get the next level down, and then went ahead and built a fishbone diagram. And this is the problem statement it stole. So I'm just going to go through all of the sheets are down here below. And I always believe that one of the best ways to tell a story with data is to build, like in Excel, a series of worksheets, right? So this is something you can do in Excel, but this, the improvement project wizard built all this stuff. So first it came up with, defects by day. And you can see we have a pretty stable process here, right? We can count on 8.5 by day, packaging defects. And then it drilled down into by line. Well, it turns out line 3, 53% of our total defects in packaging. And then it drilled into line 3, and it turns out in line 3, folded flaps are 39% of the total. Cool. Now we can take that big bar right there and come up and say, during this period of time, folded flaps accounted for 39.5% of line 3 defects, which cause waste and rework and so on. But the improvement project wizard doesn't stop there. It keeps going. So it's going to go look at the data the other way by type of defect. So here you can see we have folded flaps are 26%, dent and damaged flaps 48%, carton will not open 67%. These three things are 2/3 of the total types of defects on this packaging line. Guess what? We can take that data and drill down and start to fix it. But we're going to start with the big one first. So here you can see line 3 was 79% of folded flap defects. And the thing I like about this one is I think that tells a much stronger story. So during 2020, line 3 accounted for 79% of defect folded flaps. So now we have a couple of ways of looking at our improvement project. And this is the point. This is another point I always like to make. This is the moment when you know who should be on your improvement team. I don't know how you were taught, but I was taught, hey, you get a bunch of people together, you brainstorm ideas about problems to solve, and then you go find some data. No, all right. We're going to start with data and drill down to the point where we focus it enough. I know that I need people on line 3 that know something about folded flaps. That's who I need on my team. Well, people on line 3 that know something about folded flaps. And when I get those people, they're very quickly going to be able to come up with a minnow bone diagram that tells me exactly, hey, this is the thing that we need to work on. So this is what I used to try and teach people how to do what I'd been doing for a long time, but I found that they found it difficult to learn how to do a pivot table, right? So if you have raw data, sure, where's my thing? Keep going. When you have raw data, sure, you can insert a pivot table, and then you can summarize that in certain ways, and then you can draw a control chart out of it. It used to take me hours and sometimes days to do that. And I'm lazy, so I programmed it all into the QI macros. All right, so that's what I want you to start to think about is we can programmatically automate things that used to be hard to teach and take a long time, but are very powerful. We do the same thing with healthcare data. I mean, I've got all kinds of data in here, right? So we have lost time analysis, time to thrombolytics, nursing unit defects, the healthcare denied claim stuff, ICU medications, patient falls. These are all things that can be automated and analyzed. And here's another thing that I created because I needed it. This is actually text from a call center, right? So can we take that data and can we count the types of words that are in there? And this will parse it out into all the different words. And here you can see our top words. This is sorted in descending order. Dupe, date of service, day reject, dupe, date of service, multiple visits, same day, date of service, multiple. No matter how the call center people typed it in, it rose the thing to the top that was, we had duplicate date of service was causing most of these calls. Guess what? I can help you, pinpoint what that is. So these are things that are just all power tools to help us solve problems. So this is another way that I'm trying to hack Lean and Six Sigma is to automate so much of this that it just makes it simple for the average Joe or Susie to start getting results. So anyway, this is my thought. We need a control chart, a couple of levels of Pareto charts, maybe a histogram, right? If you're doing variation or time, wait times or anything like that, histograms, cause and effect analysis, comparison control charts, and then a before and after Pareto chart or histogram. This is what I believe to be the magic that can happen if we have the right tools and get the right people with the right problems in place. Now, another thing is I wanted you to think about hacking Six Sigma training. I don't know about the rest of you, but I spent 5 days in a control chart class calculating control chart formulas by hand. This was the 1990s. You had to do everything by hand. I could tell you in the phone company, nobody was going to do this. I did not want to do it. But all of the software out there has the same formulas, does the same thing. So let's not waste time teaching people stuff that they're not going to need to know. You also don't need to learn formulas, right? It's just not necessary. You don't need to learn decision trees, right? Many of you probably learned how to choose the right control chart by going down a decision tree like this one. But I built that decision tree into the QI macros, right? So you don't have to know that decision tree. You don't have to keep that software in your head. Close that for a second. So if you have data that maybe looks like this, and the thing about the QI macros that separates us from everybody else, and I apologize for pitching this a little bit, but I want you to get the concept, is we ask you to select the data first. If you've used any other product on the market, they all ask you to select the chart first, then pick your data. Now, what happens is then you have to keep it in your head. You have to have that decision tree in your head. And if you've ever tried to teach that decision tree to people, you know that's not that easy. And if you know what kind of chart you want to pick, you can go pick it. But if you don't, which the newbies do not, right? We want to get them moving, right? We want to get them feeling like they can be successful. The control chart wizard will look at that single column of decimal data and say, oh, that must be an XMR chart. And it'll show any out of control points in red here. And so that's a very quick way to get results. You know, maybe you want to, you have diameters and you have spec limits, right? If you want to come in here, you know, you can come in and say, well, I want a capability suite. And it'll prompt you for upper specs, so you can get all of your capability metrics calculated and so on. This is the sort of thing when people discover that they can do this quickly and painlessly, they get engaged, right? They start, you know, and I can tell I've succeeded in these classrooms because I'll be demonstrating some things and I'll walk around, see how people are doing before COVID. And, you know, and I'll look over their shoulder and they've dug up their data from their server and they're starting to draw charts of their own stuff. This is how I know, you know, that this group is going to just take off, and it happens all the time. So I just want you to get this idea. We can automate things that used to be complex. It's not if you become a black belt, you shouldn't learn how to use more exotic tools. Don't disagree. I'm looking at how do we take the average Joe or Susie and take them across the threshold into doing quality improvement in a matter of hours. What do I think they need to know? Well, I think they need to know the patterns, right? What are you trying to do? You're trying to reduce variation. That's one of the things we need to do. Or maybe you just need to move the center line up or down, reduce defects, increase patient satisfaction. Those are the things you can do with control charts. And this is, I think, the idea is we get them looking at the charts and not worrying about formulas. And I can't tell you how many people are terrified of math and statistics, but a lot of them, right? Or maybe we want to reduce variation. And so we want to move things on target, or we want to reduce the amount of variation. right? Once people see how that can be done, they know what they're trying to achieve, they start getting it done. Right? And the same thing with cycle time deviation. We want to reduce the amount of cycle time. How long do patients want to wait in an emergency room to see a doctor? 0, right? 0 time, right? And I was at one hospital in Ohio. They have a thing where you come in, you slide your ID or whatever it is so that it knows who you are. It gives you a rooming card, and you go into a room, and a nurse is in there within like 3 minutes or something like that. That's radical right there. All right. So these are the kinds of things that are possible. So I've given you some ideas. I want you to just kind of chew on all of that. And so why do we need to change Six Sigma? And I believe it's so that we can avoid extinction. Avoid extinction. I think we have to learn how to do things faster. Right? And so traditional big implementations, rigid processes, maintaining the status quo, big projects, long cycle times to do projects. Oh my gosh, I think that's painful. So small agile teams, we're going to take data, we're going to focus down, we're going to figure out exactly what needs to be fixed, fix that, engage people, make it simple, get them going. And if we can get them in there, then they're going to want to learn other stuff, right? We want to learn the other stuff. So this is where we're going. I think we've got too much gut feel, common sense, and trial and error. That was predominant at the phone company when I started. And we're going to, collect some data, analyze some data, make some improvements. And I think we can get to hassle-free America, hassle-free quality. And I think we can engage people in this and get them there. I want money belts. I don't care what color belt you have, but I like money belts because they know how to use the tools of quality to save money. Right? This is my outcome in the world. So anyway, I see some positive comments. Thank you. This is the idea of how we can do this, right? And also the best candidates for your green and black belt training will come out in those sessions because you'll see who's got it and who don't, right? I talked, I saw this at a conference, and they talked about the phrase one and done. One and done. And what they meant by that is they sent people to green belt training or black belt training. They did one project, and that was all they ever did. One project, and that was all they ever did. Waste of money, waste of time, just awful. All right, so I want people who can go out and do project after project after project after project after project and save gazillions of dollars. I think Vic was talking about their company say $1.2 billion and actually measured it, right? This is what leadership teams want. All right, so if you learned a bit about all of our tools, let me come back here for just a second, if I can find it. That's not it. Where are you? Oh, there it is. Okay, if you go out to our website, qimacros.com, under free training, we have all kinds of stuff about QI macros and a video tutorial. I'm doing a free QI macros webinar next Tuesday. If anybody wants to come, you can find out about that on our website. But I have out here a free Agile Lean Six Sigma trainer training. So if you want to learn how I teach this stuff, you can come out and watch my video training about how to do this. I don't charge for this. Why don't I charge for this? What's my outcome? My outcome is a hassle-free America, hassle-free planet, right? The more people who know how to do this, the better off we are all going to be. If I charge you for it, it'll be slow, right? It's an impediment, right? So I do this. And then if you come down under our training on the left-hand side at the very bottom, you'll see the Agile Process Innovation ebook. And so it'll open up my book, Agile Process Innovation, the digital version. This is what it looks like if you buy it on Amazon. They print them for me as I need them. But you can come out here and download that and learn more about how to hack Lean and Six Sigma to maximize results. All right, so again, that's out on our website, qimacros.com. And you can come out here and get into that very easily. All right. Let me see if I can put that into the chat box so you can all find it. Yeah, there we go. All right, so high-speed tour. Somewhere down here. What questions can I answer?
Yeah, so if anybody has any questions, I invite you to unmute yourself, ask any questions, or if you're having difficulty with that, you can also ask a question in chat and I will relay it to Jay. But Jay, this was an excellent presentation. I heartily believe and support in the concept of employee engagement through agile type of Lean Six Sigma projects. Start with the data and work from there to solve the problem. I mean, the whole concept of Lean should be about everyone become a problem solver. And you only need the most basic of tools to solve a majority of problems.
Yeah.
So this has been an excellent presentation.
Well, you know, and even the concept of agile started from Lean.
Yeah.
So we're just, you know, agile is a, you know, would you think about the words? Would you rather be lean or would you rather be agile? Lean means you're slender and may be underfed. Agile means you're, you know, you're more cheetah-like. Does this make sense? So there's lots of things buried in words. Even the word Six Sigma. Six Sigma turns people off. The Sigma part sounds statistical, and everybody's afraid of math and statistics. Even control charts, you know, Trueheart did us no favor because Americans don't like control. You know, they don't.
We can see that through COVID, right?
Right. So they hate control. Now, here's what I call the SPC, Smart Performance Charts. Smart Performance Charts. So if you
I know
wanna...
Don Wheeler coined the phrase of process behavior charts to try and eliminate the control aspect, but
right.
looking at the patterns and trends and how processes behave.
Yeah, he did. But think about it. Process, boring. Right? Behavior, what? Yeah. And chart. Okay, it's a chart, but smart performance charts. Everybody wants to measure their performance. So everybody has a Fitbit or whatever tracking, you know, how fit they are. They want to measure their performance. People like performance. They like to improve performance. Can we come up with phrases that aren't 100 years old that make it easier for people to learn? And I believe we can. Yeah. That's just my rant on that whole topic.
Well, as you said, Six Sigma just sounds so technical and statistics oriented, which, if you're going to be a black belt, master black belt, there is a lot of statistics involved, but it really has to start with what is the problem that the organization faces. It's all about organizational performance and using good statistical methods to analyze and interpret your data to drive decision making. But let's not statistics be the entire concept of the process. Earlier this year, we had a presentation on agile product development, and that was an excellent presentation as well. The whole idea of agile, learning as you go and being able to change direction based on the latest data and be responsive and agile, and again, all geared toward organizational performance. This has been excellent.
So anyway, and that's how the QI macros have evolved over the last 20 years, is people say stuff, I learn stuff, and then we apply it.
Yep. And I know, not as a selfish promotion, but I've used QI macros, especially with service industries. Again, Minitab is great. Other products, all of a sudden I can't think of what they are excellent tools as well. But you know, manufacturing versus service, even as Jay was speaking early at the beginning of his presentation, during the training, a lot of examples are manufacturing oriented, and they just don't have the same connection to service
Right.
industries, where if you can bring in a tool like QI macros, it's not so much about the statistics as it is giving you a map, a roadway to here's how you look at the data, and it can lead you to some possible improvement scenarios. So
Yeah. So
excellent tool.
just for an example, under our data, I have lots of different healthcare examples. So when I'm training people, I use falls per 1,000 patient days, right? So I use their lingo and their examples, and guess what? They get it, and then I can take this data, and we added a process change wizard that'll go look at that data and say, oh, was there a process change? In this case, there was a trend, downward trend. So good stuff comes out of that, right? Can I help people show the before and the after? So can I get them to data? And I have collected lots of data over the years to support that. And, that sort of thing helps people learn, just helps people learn.
So I see in your in the chat session, you did put a link to your latest book, Agile Lean Six Sigma. So if anybody would like to go download it, we always have the option to pay Amazon, but Jay is offering it free of
right,
promotions and the fees. So
yeah, I like this idea. And one of the things about QI macros at $300, you can afford it. If back in 1990, if I could have bought QI macros to do my job for $300, I'd have sprung for it. And that was 30 years ago. And if I'd have done that and had that tool, I could have slayed dragons in the phone company. Dragons.
Not to berate your competitors. I mean, you compare that to the cost of a Minitab or a Jump license.
Yeah, it's a bunch of bucks, and it may be overkill for your target market, because once you make an improvement, you're going to have to leave a tool behind with somebody who's a no belt to monitor and sustain. Using control charts, they're going to have to monitor that performance, or it'll go away. And so you want to leave something behind that's easy for those people to use.
Right.
Not necessarily for you, but for them. So.
Yep. Key point of the whole C part of the MAIC, the control, is turn it over to the process owner. As you said, may or may not know a whole lot about statistics or improvement or how you got there, but you have to turn it over to somebody that owns the process.
Yeah.
So Jay, just curious, are you presenting at all at the upcoming Lean Six Sigma conference?
The ASQ one?
Yes.
No. They didn't take me this year. Curse them.
I think the selection committee is still working on that. Actually, we have a member of our leadership team who's on that committee, and they have only met like once so far this year. So they're still going through all the requests for papers.
Okay, well, I've gotten a no thank you from somewhere. I just don't know.
Oh, really?
One.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if I was because I like to submit and talk as much as possible. Because I find that when I talk, people get excited and then they go out and change stuff.
Well, it's all about your presentation style, and you have experience. You have actual data to work with. So always looking for that. Yeah. Anybody else have any questions for Jay? Comments, questions?
I did have a question. I was looking at, I deal with a lot of ordinal survey response data, and it comes in the form of text. And I saw the text miner that Jay offers through QI macros. And it looks as though you request to have us send those data sets in. This would be something that would be done on an ongoing basis. So is this something that's available self-serve through the software?
Yeah, so you buy QI macros, and again, you can download a 30-day trial for free. And under our data mining data, I have the example, the word count example. But yeah, that's just in here. And then, get out of my way. Screen keeps dropping down. But under data and text mining, the word count wizard will go do that. One of the weirdest applications of that I saw was there was some woman who was helping companies uh, look at tweets to determine what words cause the biggest surge in terms of retweeting and traffic and so on. And she was using this tool to help her do data mining about Twitter and what things would trend well and not trend well. So if you're going to send out a tweet, what words should you use? And I thought, I'd have never thought of that application, right? But so it's in here. And then the other thing too is, we do have the ability to expand out to 3 and 4 word phrases, but 1 and 2 seems to be enough. And again, on our website, we have things that'll teach you how to do that. So under our free training, if you go under QI macros videos here, get out of my way. This thing keeps getting in my way. There we go. I think we have those in here somewhere, but there's descriptions on how to use all of our tools in here, the data mining tools, right? Yeah, there's the word count wizard. So online, there's 24/7, 365. There's video about how to do that.
Excellent.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Melissa.
We have people like in healthcare, they're looking at patient surveys, right? What are people saying? Right. And so you can take this kind of data and go, what are they talking about? And, maybe they're talking about the cottage cheese in the cafeteria. I don't know, but you get the idea, right? If we can nail that down, we can make improvements based on it.
Yeah. Well, excellent. I don't see any other questions, but I want to thank you, Jade, for a very informative and very enthusiastic presentation. We can all tell that you are really keen in the improvement methodology and agile process innovation. We thank you for your enthusiasm and excellent presentation.
Thanks for taking time out of your day.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, it's been very entertaining. I enjoyed it greatly. So thank you very much.
All right. And again,
right.
You can always reach out to me if you need to. So.
Okay. So do you see, everybody should now see my presentation again. Uh-oh.
Sorry. Am I in your way?
Nope,
Okay,
you're good. Just have a couple of closing comments before we adjourn for the day. Just a reminder that meeting evaluation surveys will be sent out electronically from our Voice of Customer Chair. Be looking for that email from John Lindland. And in that email, it's a thank you email for attending the program meeting. There will be a link to an evaluation on Qualtrics. And then there will also be able to download your copy of the recertification unit certification. Then in October, we actually have 2 events coming up. So I really want to strongly advertise and promote that we have a workshop coming up. So this is an additional educational and training offering beyond our normal monthly program meeting. On October 12th, we're going to be offering a root cause analysis workshop taught by Steve Zarniak. He works in one of the biomedical firms in Minneapolis. I used to be the chair of Minnesota section. He gave this presentation in Minnesota earlier this year. He has agreed to do an encore presentation here in the Phoenix area. You should be seeing some type of an announcement coming within the next week or so. We'll probably send out an email blast to all of our members. Plus, it obviously will be up on our My ASQ and also in the October sundial. But it will be a 3-hour webinar. It will be done through Zoom. Now, there is a fee associated with this, but $50, pretty minimal. The limit, though, is 20 attendees, just because of the logistics of trying to handle the training and the breakouts and the workshops. Steve has found that 20 is really his upper limit. So first come, first serve, 20 attendees. If you have people who are brand new to quality, or you have people, maybe you're an expert, but you just like some refresher, This will be an excellent workshop. He's going to actually demonstrate what tools you use to do effective root cause analysis and in what order to identify the true root cause and come up upon an effective solution. And it's really geared around the medical device industry. And that's where Steve Zarniak works. So if it works for regulated industry like medical device, you know it's got to work for your industry and your application as well. Just an excellent, excellent workshop. I can't speak more highly of it. And that will be October 12th. Then our usual second Thursday program meeting, we'll have a repeat engagement by Linda Baugh. She presented last month on resume writing, cover letters, interviewing, how to negotiate for that job you've been offered. She will be following that presentation up with a presentation on how to build your personal brand. And she'll focus on LinkedIn profiles and how to do truly effective professional networking, how to get out there, how to get your name recognizing, how to get your visibility and improve the enhancement in the industry that you're working at. Linda is a professional career counselor. She really focuses on executives, but she's offering her services to the Phoenix section as well. So 2 excellent programs coming up next month, sponsored by your ASQ Phoenix section. And then just want to make you aware that there is an upcoming joint conference of Quality Management Division and Software Division that's coming up later this month, September 21 and 23. It's a virtual conference. It's like from 9 until 2 for each of those 3 days. The member price is $100. They're offering a special promotion. If you are a student, so if you have a student in your family or your household, or if you are aware of some students, and they don't have to be ASQ student members, they can be student of any age. If they are a student, they can get a special price for just $25. So this is a very excellent opportunity to bring some exposure of quality to the younger generation. And I got the link below of where to apply. Then in October, later October, the ASQ is having its annual Quality 4.0 Summit. So talking about quality in the new industrial age of robotics and automation, digital electronics, smartphones, more and more apps are tying smartphones into your actual production devices. So this is a conference focusing on advances, adoption, and the advocacy of Quality 4.0. You see the regular pricing, but they too are offering a special for students. Now, in this case, it has to be an ASQ student member, but they get a free registration to the conference. Again, if you have anyone in your household, friends or family, who are students, they can become an ASQ student for $31. Very, very inexpensive. And then once a student, they can get a complimentary registration to the summit. So again, I would highly recommend that. That's coming up later in October. One of our partner alliances, Sway, they focus on Baldrige, on performance excellence. They have their regular monthly seminar or webinars every third Thursday. So a week from today, they have a presentation on creating this culture of excellence. And it will be presented by Paul Warcell, who is the retired president of the 2007 National Baldrige Award winner, ProTech. So he's going to be talking about how do you build of excellence? How do you build a culture of excellence? How do leaders actually build and sustain that type of methodology and approach within an organization? Finally, before we go, just to remind you, we can be contacted within the ASQ Phoenix section on a variety of means. We of course have our My ASQ webpage. We have the sundial. But if you haven't already, please join us on Facebook or follow us on Instagram or on LinkedIn, on YouTube. or on Twitter. You can see all of our different addresses are here. So with that, I would like to close this evening. I want to thank again Jay for an excellent presentation. Really enjoyed that. And
Thank you.
we'll look forward to seeing you next month.
Thank you.
Happy September, everybody.
All right. Aloha.
All right. Bye-bye.